Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final session of the first day of the Symposium on Eudaimonia and Music Learning. It's my great pleasure to introduce Virginia Wayman Davis from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, who, in a perfect segue, is going to be talking about growth mindset and eudaimonia. Over to you, Virginia.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. First of all, since I drew the happy hour slot here today, if you're not already drinking, please go ahead and enjoy a drink while I do this. And then also I will say I've got the caption generator on my PowerPoint. So even if none of my jokes make you laugh, there might be some good autocorrects happening here. So I'm going to assume that if you're laughing, it's because of either my jokes or the autocorrect. All right. So yeah, I'm really thankful for the presentations that have come before me today. I think a lot of these were a great segue into what I'm going to talk about. I hope that what I have to say will contribute to another piece to this puzzle here. So I'm going to set the scene by giving you the short version of one of my favorite lectures to give my students about music in the human experience. So the important thing is that we have good evidence to suggest that music, of course, is at least as old as language in the human experience. And according to some people who seem to know about these things, may even predate language. So let's see. Wait, how do I, hold on. It's beeping at me instead of moving to the next slide. What am I doing wrong? There we go. I can just click. Cool. Okay, there we go. We know, of course, I know you all know that music is present in every culture, everywhere, has been since we began. And one of the things that I like to point out when I'm talking to my students about this is that even though making music, making art, being creative is not commonly considered one of the 4 biological drives, those being food, water, sleep, sex, I tend to believe that it actually is, that humans have such a great, incredibly strong drive to create art, and we can't keep ourselves from doing it. And in fact have made music, made art under the most dire of circumstances, right? Like, for example, now we are in a very different place in our human history, a dire circumstance for sure. So we're all sitting alone in our individual spaces. We're trying really, really hard to connect with each other right now. And consider all of the creative work that is taking place over the last few months, all the things that are happening as people are trying to survive what's happening right now. When people are stressed, bored, afraid, confused, adrift, we've seen them making music. We've seen families making music together, filming coronavirus parody songs. This was one of my favorites. These guys were doing a little Les Mis parody, and it was really super cute, and the kids sang great, and they were really, really fun. We've seen a lot of musical artists doing webcasts and live streams, probably even more for themselves than for us. There's a few of my favorites who's been doing several times a week, coming on and just playing from their houses and making music. And I'm sure that you probably have some of your own that you've been enjoying in these past couple of months as well. Everybody has their little favorites that they check in on, and it's been, so valuable. Even this very shady looking group of people here got in on the act and decided to make music together apart. And I think that we see this because music is such a vital part of how we understand the world, how we center ourselves, and contributes so much to our experience of being who we truly are and living well. We can't seem not to do it. And June Boyce Tillman touched on this morning, the idea of singing, making music as a powerful way to gain strength and face adversity. Now, I bring this up, number one, just because I think it's cool. I think it's a neat thing that we do as humans, but because also one of the things that I've noticed as I've enjoyed all this home music making, and I really, really have enjoyed it, it's absolutely saved me a few times in these past couple of months, is the apparent lack of self-consciousness or really much public criticism in so many of these amateur music making efforts. you know, this really could have turned into an America's Got Talent style audition with lots of snark and cruelty and judgment and, you know, you're terrible. But really, I feel like it hasn't, you know, maybe that's just, you know, that I've narrowed my news feed down to only the most positive humans, but I don't think so. I think that it seems like people overall have been very accepting of the content that's been being made. And maybe we're just so desperate for literally anything to watch at this point. But I don't think that's it. I think it's something better. I think that society is using art to survive when things get rough, and we're using it to connect with each other. So that brings me to wondering, how is it that so many amateur musicians are able to perform for the good of the whole without worrying about their messy house in the background and their musical mistakes or their bad quarantine haircuts? Right? Something's happening here. And I think that that's something connects with the idea of growth mindset, which is something that I've written a few articles about, something that I kind of dip in and out of and have throughout the years. So if you don't know anything about growth mindset, or if you've heard the buzzword in educational circles without really knowing the research behind it, let's review just a little bit. So growth mindset is a term coined by social science researcher Carol Dweck. It's kind of hard to say, Carol Dweck, which describes a tendency towards learning from challenges and from failure. So in her book, Mindset, which is a really, really interesting, very readable book, she explains that one of the most basic beliefs we carry about ourselves involves how we view our own abilities and those of others. And this has some pretty big ramifications for our life's trajectory and choices. So these beliefs can be found in two mindsets. First of all, the fixed mindset, which assumes that all of our traits, such as creativity, character, intelligence, musical ability, and the like, are static and unchangeable. You got what you got, you're born with it, you're done. That's all there is. So a person with a fixed mindset believes that abilities are set in stone, and you either are or are not good at something. The fixed mindset admires apparently effortless ability. So you see these tropes on TV, you know, he's got a photographic memory and he's a genius and he never has to work very hard, but yet, you know, can solve the crime or knows the answer to everything, right? We really like that idea. Fears appearing unskilled or untalented to others, would prefer not to try rather than risk failure, and busy trying to appear talented while others are busy getting better. So you can see the problem here right away. They're so busy trying to look cool, basically, that they're not actually progressing at all. So success then is for them an affirmation of that inherent ability, an assessment of how those givens that you have measure up against some sort of equally fixed standard. And striving for success, avoiding failure at all costs, becomes a way of maintaining this sense of being smart or skilled. Consequently, mistakes or failures of any kind produce a deep sense of shame because they actually reflect on our core self. The growth mindset, on the other hand, is based on the belief that our abilities can grow throughout our lives and that things like intelligence or talent are not fixed, but are instead malleable. So the growth mindset believes abilities can be developed and grown, that talent is actually the result of effort thoughtfully applied. We'll talk a little bit more about talent a little bit later on. Less worried about outward appearance or measuring up to others, and instead concerns themselves with self-improvement, maybe being better than I was yesterday, for example. And then are unafraid to closely examine failures for learning opportunities. Not easy, but something that's important to do. The growth mindset thrives on challenge and sees failure not as evidence of unintelligence, but as an opportunity for growth and for stretching our existing abilities. Of these two mindsets, which we manifest from a very early age, by the way, springs a great deal of our behavior, our relationship with success and failure in both professional and personal contexts, and perhaps ultimately our capacity for happiness. So how does this show up in music education? Well, in music education, in music students, you may have seen some of these things. The growth mindset in music and a music learner relishes a challenge. This is the student that wants to play the hardest etude in the book, or immediately jumps to playing a song that they really, really like, even though it's way above their ability, and just, keeps chipping away at it. Enjoys new opportunities rather than getting by with the tried and true. Realizes that hard work and perseverance is necessary to achieve a goal. More interested in getting better than just appearing talented. Takes a slow and steady approach to music learning, and may in fact appear to be a late bloomer because they take a while to synthesize all this information, and then all of a sudden, boom, there they are. The fixed mindset in music, you may have also seen some of these ideas in your teaching. The fixed mindset student will practice the easier sections of an etude, avoid the parts that are difficult. They're going to want to play the same song over and over and over again. They are going to play last year's concert music rather than wanting to start hacking through the new stuff. Downplays the amount that they practice, wanting to appear naturally talented. They're that person that would walk into class and say, I didn't study, and then they get an A. You're just like, you suck. Because chances are they did study. They're just trying to look cool. Frequently praised for achievements, and then becomes more concerned with avoiding failure than increasing musicianship. And the praise issue comes into this quite a lot. The more you praise somebody and tell them, oh, you're talented, you're so good, they have a tendency to want to really hold on to that label, and will start doing anything it takes to get there. Anything but practicing. Can be successful as a young musician, but will eventually hit the wall. They can't, go on forever without really practicing and working hard. And the problem is when they hit the wall, they don't have any strategies for overcoming difficulty. It's been easy for so long. You see this in a lot of very naturally smart, naturally talented people. They can skate by for a long time before they figure out that they actually haven't learned anything. And this type of student may eventually be passed by those maybe who are less naturally talented, but are more willing to put themselves out there, make mistakes, learn from them, and grow. These mindsets also relate to some other ideas which we commonly see in the arts, in arts education, in academia, like imposter syndrome, performance anxiety, a lot of that's wrapped up in this, and learned helplessness, which is the feeling that you can't do anything right, so you might as well just give up and refuse to try, even when the task is within your ability. So in a moment, I'm going to actually jump into a little bit of discussion. We're going to add a little bit of discussion time right here in the middle. So I'm going to talk a little bit, but in a minute, I want you to see if you can think of a time when maybe you've had a student, or maybe yourself, struggling with the idea of a fixed mindset, something maybe they had a fixed mindset about, or a time when you noticed a growth mindset, again, either in a student or yourself. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So the thing that's great about growth mindset to me is that it creates a passion for learning rather than a hunger for approval. And that great part is that human qualities like intelligence and creativity, but even relational capacities like love, friendship, empathy, as Kat was talking about earlier, can be cultivated through effort and deliberate practice. That all of these are learned behaviors. It's not something that you either have or don't have. And this, of course, this idea isn't new. You see plenty of self-help books and, you can do anything, vacant platitudes. But what makes this different is that it's actually rooted in rigorous research on how the mind, especially the developing mind, works, identifying not just the core drivers of those mindsets, but also how they can be reprogrammed. So real quick, let me see if can I see humans with this? Kind of, not really. Maybe I'll stop the screen share for just a sec. There we go. If anybody wants to unmute or wave wildly and then unmute, quick discussion. Anybody have an example of a fixed or growth mindset, either in a student or in themselves and their experience that they can share? Yes, please.
Yeah, so I'm a fourth grade recorder teacher, and I teach 5th and 6th grade band in Northern New Jersey. And I just had a student probably like January or February. She played cello, and I was, just very like nicely and supportively just reminding her where her first finger needed to go on the strings. And she like freaked out and thought that I was like, attacking her, and she quit. She's just said like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was trying to tell her that, you know, my job is just to like help her get better and to encourage her and just, you know, to bring out like the best musician that she can be. And she just didn't believe me. She thought that I was like attacking her. And there was nothing I could do to like bring her back in the ensemble. She also doubled on flute, so I had her in my band class as well as my string class, and she just like spitefully said, and I don't know if I want to play flute anymore, and just like stop showing up for a band. So I was trying not to take it personally, but I understand that she was one of those students that everything just came naturally to her. She wasn't the type to like spend time practicing or spend time studying because she was just amazing at everything she did. So when I was correcting her, it was like the worst thing in the world, and she didn't know how to handle it. And it was tough because I've never had that situation with any student before. And it was the first encounter that I've had with a student like that. So it's hard to not take it personally, but I understand.
It is hard. It is hard not to. Although, you know, you have to kind of realize, of course, that it says more about them than it says about you.
Yeah.
And the problem, yeah, I was going to say, the problem is that it's sometimes our most intelligent and most talented students that have the issue, exactly what you said. She's never had to work on anything before. And so it just goes right to their core sense of self. And it's so hard to reverse it when it's that ingrained.
Yeah. I was talking to the guidance counselor too, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I felt more sad for her that she is just that type of student to put so much pressure on herself. But the guidance counselor just assured me like, this wasn't you, it is her. This is something that she needs to work through. But it's tough because I also feel that like as a music teacher, I don't want to see my students struggle like that either. So it's not only about like trying to get them out of that fixed mindset, but it's also trying to like just fix them. And as a teacher, you can't fix everybody, you know, and that I think is the toughest part.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so can I keep some of those things in mind? Thank you, Sarah, for throwing that example in here. Let's see if I can get back to my screen. And we can maybe continue some of this discussion later as well. Oh, that was the slide I was supposed to be showing. I'm the worst at moving my slide and talking at the same time. But I really like this little whale, so I'll leave him up for just a second. Yeah, so as we talked about, it can be really, really hard to get students out of that kind of mindset. It's probably a little ironic. Every time I try to teach one of my own children, for example, I kind of almost have that same example with my daughter as I tried to teach her ukulele. And, you know, we got to the second chord, like having to put down more than one finger and like tears and freaking out from this child, you know, as I sit here like, it's okay, it's fine. I'm trying not to be intimidating. There's probably more wrapped up in there. Teaching your own kids is hard, but it's very, very hard to get people out of that fixed mindset, but it's very valuable. So, okay. So this is, of course, you know, it's more easily said than done to try to push even yourself into a growth mindset. It's occurred to me that I talk and write about this because it's something that I actually struggle with myself. And even Carol Dweck has mentioned that nobody has a growth mindset for everything all the time. We all have areas where we struggle with self-image or we feel like we're not that great. And we all likely have times when we compare ourselves maybe not so favorably with others and have it affect our self-confidence. This is not, you know, this is a universal thing that we all struggle with. It's not like, hey, I've achieved growth mindset, I'm good, I'm done. It doesn't work like that. You're going to be moving in and out of it and in and out of it, and it'll depend on the task to a certain degree. So, okay, so useful stuff. But what does this have to do with eudaimonia? How does this disposition towards learning from failure lead us towards discovering ourselves and living well by doing good? Well, we know that eudaimonia views well-being as a function of discovering and following one's true nature to promote well-being, and that this should be the goal of a true education. We also know that much of music education is concerned with an entirely different goal, the idea of skill acquisition and improvement. June Boyce-Tillman talked about this morning, this goal of perfection versus a more participatory music experience. And I think that these two goals don't need to necessarily be mutually exclusive, that music and other arts can be a great way for students to realize and express their true selves. But to achieve this, we need to give them a way to develop their skills in a way that can emphasize growth and de-emphasize the idea that success is a one-size-fits-all, pass-fail type of situation. So, of course, rather than just having fun, having this hedonic enjoyment, eudaimonia is associated with being challenged and exerting effort, according to Waterman. And this effort has to be valued by the person, according to Deci and Ryan, who tell us that while a person can be happy to succeed at an activity that they feel pressured to do, it's not the same thing as the eudaimonic well-being that will come from something that they choose to do. And instead, individuals need three factors in which to foster eudaimonia and self-actualization, and that would be autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So growth mindset can be a way that you can provide this for students or help them move them along the path to these things. Autonomy, through allowing students to make choices, learn from their choices, forge their own path through the learning experience. Competence, by helping students see the progress that they've already made. That can be a really good way to help push people into more of a growth mindset by reminding them about how far they've come and treating them as capable learners. And relatedness, by structuring learning experiences to be cooperative and supportive rather than competitive. And when students do experience those inevitable struggles, we can help them reframe them, not as failures, but opportunities. So according to research, people with high levels of eudaimonic well-being interpret difficult experiences as transformative opportunities and report personal identity narratives or growth stories in which struggle leads to enhanced state of existence. And according to this guy, Bauer et al., happiness, and especially eudaimonic happiness, depends on a sense of meaningfulness in life, and being the hero of your own story is sort of key to this. So the growth story is sort of a personal narrative that showcases your development or your developmental process. So growth itself is playing this central role in eudaimonic well-being. We talked about Maslow a little bit earlier in the day, this idea that the self-actualizing, that's hard to say, person is motivated by growth. So individuals who express a high level of eudaimonic well-being tend to frame difficult scenes in their life stories as transformative episodes, whereas they experienced pain and intense pain and suffering, but they learned new lessons, gained self-insights, deepened personal relationships, and the like. So this is basically just eudaimonia. This is growth mindset on a large life scale. So according to Ryan and Deci, this type of well-being is not just positive thinking at all costs. It's not the idea of toxic positivity or good vibes only. The idea is, rather than hiding or downplaying these less positive feelings like shame and jealousy and anxiety, acquiring a growth mindset requires full emotional functioning, meaning we are going to fail sometimes and it's going to feel crappy. We're going to experience sadness and setbacks, and that's going to happen, and that's okay. The point is that you have to feel it to move past it. So the key is how we can use our strengths to move past it, applying coping strategies, learning strategies in order to grow. So if growth mindset and eudaimonia are correlated, can deliberate work towards achieving one also help with the other? Can consciously attending to the development of growth mindset help move you or move your students along the path towards a eudaimonic existence? It seems to me that it could. If we can help others and ourselves reframe challenges, setbacks, mistakes, screw-ups as learning opportunities and emphasize that comeback story, then it should, if we are to believe Ryan and Deci, promote happiness and vitality, leading to greater life satisfaction, pro-social behavior. It might also help us be a little kinder to ourselves and others as we learn and fail and grow towards becoming who we are. And a person who feels good about themselves has mental and emotional space to lift others. Music classrooms, using principles of growth mindset, shift the focus in the classroom away from performance-oriented to outwardly motivated ideas of perfection and conformity to embrace struggle and effort as necessary for more holistic ideas of learning, well-being, and self-discovery. And right now, performance-oriented, perfection-oriented music ed is in crisis, or at the very least on hold, right? We don't know what the fall is going to look like. We don't know if these groups are going to be able to perform, which makes this the perfect opportunity to rethink our music classes a little bit, for opportunities to move towards eudaimonic well-being. I think we're seeing this a little bit already. As music educators are scrambling to continue their work in some way, we're seeing lots of creative and wonderfully imperfect solutions to music making and music ed. And perhaps in a year or two when the performance classes rebound, we're gonna see a little different animal, I hope. Maybe a little more space for creativity, approximation, connection, exploratory learning, fewer drill and kill rehearsals. That would be nice. So how do we do this? What are some practical ways? It's very easy to say, yes, we should do that. I like to focus when I can on practical solutions. So first of all, the power of yet. So when you're tempted to say, oh, I'm no good at this, just add yet. I'm no good at this yet. Like, it's still possible. Remembering that nothing worthwhile comes without struggle. Immediate success without effort is not very common, despite, you know, the tropes that you see on TV. So help your students realize how far they've already come, how the hard work in the past has paid off. Remind them of that past concert and, oh, remember how hard that piece was when we first started playing it, and then you played it. And help them kind of work through that thought process a little bit. And also consider helping them understand how their music can benefit others rather than just being so focused on themselves and their inevitable shortcomings. Okay, so some little brainstorming ideas. I won't go through all of these, and of course some of this is a little bit simplified. But the idea is to think about replacing some of the common negative thoughts that you might have or that you might hear a student say with something that's more oriented towards growth. You know, so instead of saying I'll give up, you can say, you know, I have strategies. I can use strategies. I can ask for help. Instead of saying I'm bad at this is one I like to use, especially with younger students who play video games. Oh, I must have just leveled up. So that happens when you get to the next level and suddenly everything's hard again and they go, oh, why is it hard? Oh, it's because I just leveled up. In a video game, that means you've beaten a level and you've gone to the next level. That's a good thing. You've improved. So helping them enjoy that, that feeling. Other ways that we can help. Focusing on process rather than product. We've talked about this a little bit. I like to think that I'm a process rather than product oriented teacher. And that's not just because I don't like to grade papers, although that's part of it. It's all about the process. I don't really care what you turn in at the end. No, not true. Provide frequent formative assessment opportunities before you assign grades. So let them do some self-assessments, peer assessments, other ways to work on things before it becomes super high stakes. Adopt a mastery learning format that allows multiple attempts at assignments without penalties. Let them turn things in again and again and again until they get it right. Model a growth mindset yourself by trying new things, discussing them, talking about your own failures and setbacks with students so that they know that you know that their teachers aren't perfect, nobody is, that you're all kind of in the same boat. We talked a little bit this morning about that community music making. Brian talked about community music making. So using that philosophy more in class, allowing some approximation, allowing students to correct their own mistakes instead of jumping on every little thing and telling them the answer, let them work through it themselves. And then when you praise mindfully, thinking about praising effort, use of learning strategies, improvement over time, rather than just labeling students as, oh, you're really smart or you're really talented, because that can really just kick the best of us right into a fixed mindset, even when we're trying to avoid it. Okay, so let's sum up. So the through line here that I hope that I made clear is that making music unabashedly without regards to looking perfect. So not showing off your talent or hiding your flaws, but just because this is what we do as humans, it keeps us sane, it helps others, is the true essence of eudaimonia. And it's that disposition that spurs you to be yourself, keep going when things get hard, do good for others in whatever ways you can. And for those of us who are musicians, artists, writers, our way is through making music, making art, having that idea of just beautiful, human, imperfect music. And that's what I got. Thank you.